I want to thank you for showing. I'm really surprised that we're having such a great turnout, really. In fact, I'm humbled by it. I didn't think there would be that much of an interest in chicken farming, but it is really a time in Jewish history in New Jersey. And, well, as soon as my dad bought the farm, the price of eggs tumbled. Now, instead of buying a farm on Route 9, you would think maybe for the future that if something happened, Route 9 is going to be a highway that would be reckoned with, and maybe the land would be worth something. No. My father decided to buy a farm on the loneliest freaking road in America. It's right up against Camp Earl. Now, Mark, can we put on the picture? Let me first put, there we are. You see that? Now let me show you something. You see that gate? There's a gate there. You can't see it, but trust me, there's a gate. That is called Camp Earl. Camp Earl, for those of you who didn't know when you bought in New Jersey, is one of the largest ammunition depots in the country. Which means that if the Taliban ever hit that, you wouldn't have to worry about where you're going to wind up. You'll go to heaven right away. Nobody will see you. No parts will be there. It'll all be gone. And by the way, Camp Earl is big. Extends all the way to Colt's Neck and to Leonardo, which is the seaport, where the ships take the ammunition and ship it around the world. So he says, gee, that would be a good place to have a farm. They buy the farm. So he buys this farm. Mark, see if you can get the house on there. Is there a house somewhere? Oh, there it is. Now, the other day, I made the terrible mistake of going back there and taking a look at this farm, whatever they might call it now. That truly is my house. Okay, that is similar to the kind of coops. My coops are not there anymore. But this is very similar to what coops used to look like. I would call them chicken coops. And you see these doors here? Each one of them is a room. And they have the doors on the outside because you used to get the chickens and put them in the coop through the outside door. That's how you got them in. There are about 500 chickens to a coop. The litter was actually corn stalks that were cut up and used as litter, not cat litter. And the chickens were put in there after they were raised. Now, they had to be raised. So, in our business, we used to buy a chicken 1 day old. We did not hatch the eggs. 1 day old chickens, about 20 cents a chicken. That's not bad, right? But then we bought 20,000 of them because we had a pretty large farm. It eventually started off at 10,000, and we added coops, and we worked, and we built it up to about 20,000 chickens. When we bought those little chicks, we had to put them in what is called a brooder house because we had to brood them. We had to raise them. But that's the new stuff I'll talk about. We're back over here in 1950, and we're collecting eggs. Now, I used to go from coop to coop, and I had a carrier, what we called a carrier. The carrier was on a rail, and we used to carry that through the coops, and it would go from one room to the other, and on there were my pails, my egg baskets, and I'd go out with the basket, go up to the chickens, get the hell out of there, get my eggs, right? Put them in the basket. And then I'd go from room to room until I was done that. I'd go all the way through to the feed room, take the eggs, put it on my truck, my 1938 truck that I love. I wish I had that truck. And then I would take it to the grading room. Now, where was my grading room? Our grading room was in my house, in the basement. And I used to schlep the eggs into the basement. Now, when we did that, some of the eggs were dirty, right? I mean, the fakat on the eggs. Not always. Most of the eggs, by the way, were clean. They really were. But some of the chickens, they were dirty. They wanted to fakak where they eat. You know, where they lay the eggs. They wanted to, you know. So the eggs got dirty. So in the beginning, we used to have what is called a sandler. It was a piece of, you know, a sanding piece of sandpaper wrapped around a board of whatever you, a block, and you would go like this to the egg to get the schmutz off. And every egg that was dirty, you would do it by hand and schmutz it off. Sometimes you broke the egg. Most of the time, you didn't break the egg. And after a while, we got smart and we bought what is called a washing egg machine. Now, at that time, they looked like the beginning of the washers that people had back in the 1850s. It was a round thing, and you took the whole basket, you put it in the washer. It would oscillate, water would oscillate through it, so the air would get in there, and it would, you know, it would ease so that the eggs don't crack, and wash them. Then you would take them out, and I put them down and have big fans in the basement to dry them, because you can't put them in wet, isn't it? So they dry them. Then the work first begins. Then my mother would have to spend between 4 to 8 hours grating the eggs. And that's taking each egg out of the basket, putting it on a roller, on a machine, that would then bring it to wherever the weight told them to bring the egg and drop it. For example, you see this thing? Now this is a hand weigher. I had a few of these, and I used to use these. 1 egg at a freaking time. Ridiculous? Yeah. So this little weight tells you whether this particular machine is proper. And this should be 22 grams, and I'm sure it should be pretty well set at 22 grams. 22 grams was a medium egg. Now the machine knew that because it had weights too. And so we would set the medium schedule. We had a pullet egg, which is smaller than a medium egg, and a large egg, which is 24 to 26 grams, an extra large egg, 26 to 28, a jumbo from 29 to 31, or bigger. And each egg would fall into its own slot. Well, now you have an idea of what life was like at some point before you ever dreamt about coming to New Jersey, especially central New Jersey. Look, there was a lot of things that were tough, but it was a good life in this respect. It was clean, it was hardworking, and that's all I can say.
The speaker will be Everett Rogove.
I'm not a very public speaker, I'm just an administrator. And a self-work person who make my own living successfully. When I first came down there in 1938, this was a potato farm, right where you're sitting. That's what they had in Frio, potatoes and some apple orchards. My father, a successful plumbing and heating contractor in Westchester County, New York, decided to retire to a poultry farm in 1937. His family had previously owned a fruit farm in upstate New York. He looked in the Liberty, New York area, where a family member had a small poultry farm, but on advice of the Jewish Agricultural Society, he surveyed the central Jersey area. I remember going with my father to the office there, and they definitely advised him to come down here in the Freehold area. He bought a 10-acre poultry farm on West Farms Road in Howell Township that had a capacity of 2,000 chickens. He owned it for about 2 years, selling it, and bought a 100-acre farm in Jackson Township, Ocean County, which the family owned until 1964. I was 15 years old when the family moved to Howell in 1938. I attended Freehold High School under Mr. Stillwell, and that started my career in scientific agriculture. Then he taught a course in vocational agriculture. Some of our fellow poultry farmers in West Farms were the Alpuses, Cow, Grossman, Nappy, Rubenstein, Sokol, Greenberg, and Weisfield. I don't know if any of them are still around, but they were older than I was at the time. I graduated Lakewood High School in 1940, and of course entered the family business, which was Rogove's Poultry Farm. At that time, it consisted of 160-foot long, all-metal building. It was the first of 5 large modern buildings that eventually housed 35,000 breeding hens plus cockerels. We also had 10,000 layers on a satellite farm that we owned. And by the way, we had a hatchery building and an egg grating on the premise, but it was all above ground, thank you. In the fall of 1940, I went to the New Jersey College of Agriculture Rutgers. Of course, I specialized in poultry husbandry. My professors included Dr. Thompson, Mr. Jeffries, Professor Platt, and Dr. Pedette. He was a DMD doctor. Needless to say, that is where I learned how to be a successful poultryman and pedigree breeder. After graduating, I stayed in touch with my instructors, especially Dr. Pedette and Professor Platt. We cooperated with them doing several projects on our farm for them. One spring, we were asked by the Ludley Company to supply them with fertile eggs. And we kept our roosters in all summer that year. The normal hatching season was in the spring, so we put the roosters in usually in December, November, December, took them out in April. That year we kept them in through the whole summer. Poultry farms was equipped with slat floors made of wood and hydraulic manure cleaner beneath the roosting area. We developed our own strain of Leghorn chickens. Our original brood stock came from the Hanson Farm in the state of Washington and the Rockefeller Institute, Mount Hope Farm in Massachusetts. From the mid-40s until the 60s, I maintained 10 family lines to improve our strain, and I did all the genetic work and attended seminars in the University of Massachusetts to improve my genetic skills. We were active farmers in Farmco and Tomco, 2 poultry farmers marketing co-ops. We belong to Central Jersey Farmers Co-op based in Hightstown and GLF Agway, where we purchased our feed and supplies. I also belonged to and was active in the Ocean County and the Jersey Boards of Agriculture. I was secretary of the New Jersey Poultry Breeders Association, and of course, I saved the best for last. I married a farmer's daughter, Bernice Rosencrantz of Toms River. Her father, Max, was one of the pillars of the community of Jewish farmers in Toms River. Bernice and I had a relationship that lasted for 70 years. We raised 3 handsome sons who were successful in their own lives, and the demise of the farm came about when some fool of a dietitian claimed that the yolks of the eggs were bad for you. People stopped eating eggs, and the market for our baby chicks vanished. And that's when we decided to shut the farm down. I'll take any questions you have.
Okay, I'm Ben's son. My grandfather, Max, had a farm off of Route 9, Church Road at Toms River. He had about 9 acres, and they had, I think my father said they had about 2,300 chickens. My father grew up, and I heard all the stories. One funny story, my brother, who's 3 years older than me, I think he was 5 years old, opened up the chicken fence, and the chickens, I think there were 1,000 chickens went out. So I heard that story. But my father worked hard on the chicken farm, and also the egg farmers got together and they founded B'nai Israel in Toms River. They all got together. The old building's still there. And I don't know if my father wants to add anything to it.
By the way, he's my brother.
That's good news. Not much to say. It was rough going. When we were a kid, we had to do certain things on the farm that normally you don't do it for first thing in the morning. Before you go to school, you you got to open up the nest and do this and do that. But it was a rough life working on a farm, and I'm glad I never kept on going, and I'm successful now without being on the farm.